Erica, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today for our webinar, Highlights of Convergence 2014, which will discuss the top takeaways and biggest news from the show. We'll be kicking off the webinar in just a couple minutes, but I just wanted to go over a couple things for everyone to know. We'll be muting all of the participants today. You'll notice on the right-hand navigation there's a chat question feature. So if you have any questions or concerns during the webinar, I'm here. I'm happy to help. So please just message into the question box and I will address your question. Any questions for our presenters we'll address at the end of the webinar. And if for any reason we run out of time and we're unable to get to your question, we'll be sure to have someone follow up with you. We'll also be making the slides and the recording from today's webinar available for you to download from our website following the webinar. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, John.
Thank you, Erica. My name is John Subra. I'm our Microsoft Practice Director. I'm also here today with Lance Krumholtz from our Dynamics GP and AX team. I'll be taking you through the beginning of our webinar today. Today's agenda will first give you a brief overview of Emtec for those of you that have perhaps not worked with us a significant amount in the past. From there, we'll move through what we considered our top 5 takeaways from the conference, then moving into Dynamics CRM and the highlights from that product throughout the conference, then to Dynamics GP, followed up by any of your questions. One thing to note as we do go through the agenda, and when we reached out to everyone for today's webinar, we had asked about the product of interest. And we have a very large GP base today on the call, so we will be focusing more on Dynamics GP and the highlights from the conference there. A little bit on CRM as well, but so for any of those that have a deeper interest in Dynamics CRM, certainly can take a separate one-off call and go into some of the details, similarly with GP. And you notice there's a few other products for those that are familiar with the Dynamics family, whether perhaps you've heard of Dynamics AX or Dynamics NAV, as well as some of the other affiliated Microsoft products that were discussed at the conference. We have not highlighted those for the purpose of staying focused based on our attendees. So similarly, if you have questions into the interactions between Dynamics CRM and GP and say something like SharePoint, we can also use a follow-up conversation with yourselves. One other note is when going to the conference, there are many, many different sessions and activities going on, and I'd say between Lance and I, we're able to cover maybe only 10 to 20% of what's going on for a given product. So certainly there's other news and highlights that we have privy to from having attended the conference. So if you have some deeper questions or modules that you'd like to learn more about, we can certainly follow up as well. So from there, I'd like to just give you a bit of an overview from an Emtec perspective. Emtec, for those that have worked with us, know that Emtec and our former organization, Emerging Solutions, had merged almost about 3 years ago now. Emtec itself has been serving clients for nearly 46 years, and we span 14 locations across the globe, around 1,000 different professionals. In the past, we've been named by Crain's as one of the top 100 places to work in Chicagoland. And you can see here in the bottom left some of the offices. Lance, myself, and Erica, we're talking today based out of our Chicago office. We do have a Minneapolis and St. Louis office as well, so a bit of a heavier footprint in the Midwest, also some Canadian offices. And we do have some offshore offices that help to extend our team. We'll touch on that just a bit here as well. Some of the services here, I won't go through all those clearly. They're up on the screen, and hopefully you can read them. I know the font's a bit smaller. But in terms of the overall packaged application group is really what our Chicago-based office focuses on, that being Microsoft packaged applications, PeopleSoft, Oracle, and Salesforce being some of the few that we focus on. From a Dynamics perspective, our group has over 180 different engagements that we've undertaken over the years and around 255 projects. I guess we're getting pretty precise there with the 255, so somebody's gone through the efforts to tabulate that. And then moving more about our Microsoft practice, so those that are on this call that are familiar with us obviously know that we have a Dynamics GP and CRM practice. Additionally, Dynamics AX as well as another sister ERP product offered by Microsoft that we focus on. We also have a SharePoint practice, which will deal with anything from an infrastructure to development within the SharePoint platform. And then a custom development group, which really circles around a lot of the other packaged applications. So that gives us the .NET development to extend and do add-ons for Dynamics CRM or ERP, integrations using web services. We've listed a couple of some sample integrations we've done in the past. Those 3 examples all taking GP and extending that to some other products. We also have a business intelligence / reporting capability that we can also customize and do around any of those applications. One of the unique value propositions our group has been very happy with, that we've been recognized by Gartner and AMR as certified in the financial services, professional services industries. So that means that we've been able to meet a certain set of minimum criteria in terms of client references, case studies, and expertise demonstrated in those industries. We also do have a full capability from a managed service perspective, meaning we can provide support long-term across your Dynamics platform, both leveraging our onshore and, again, that offshore team that I mentioned earlier. And that full capability really extends across the Microsoft stack. That stack meaning everything from the servers on the infrastructure side, the applications clearly that we have a lot of experience in dealing with the functional and the configuration, but then also the extended integrations, customizations, and reporting that go around those products as well. And then all of these solutions, and we'll be touching a bit on this in both the CRM and the GP highlights, in addition to some of the others as well, can be delivered via cloud or on-premise from our group. And then up here on the right, we have a bit of a count of the number of resources on our team. And then we are also a gold competent partner in both ERP and CRM, ERP being GP and AX. So from there, we're going to move into our top 5 highlights, and we really want to just throw something out there for those that maybe haven't been to Convergence before, had considered going, or maybe have gone once and haven't gone back. So this was just our quick take on what we'd like to throw out there from a general Convergence information for you. So not really in any, not like the David Letterman top 10 listing here, so not in really any specific order. So just reading them 1 through 5, learning. There's just a lot of information and a wealth of information out there for organizations such as yourselves. The event has moved, in my opinion, less from maybe a balanced partner and customer event to even more of a customer-focused event. There's an expo with a lot of independent software vendors for you to learn about different verticals for your specific industry, or the horizontal, such as check printing, that obviously would go across any industry. A lot of informative sessions where you can delve in and learn about specific modules, business process flows. Some technical information, but not as much as they've had in the past. They're actually, on a side note, starting up a thing called Stampede that they used to do in the Dynamics channels in Fargo. They're re-energizing that type of a conference, and it's more of a tech-focused one, and it's something that's going to go on in the fall of this year. So again, there are technical sessions there. You are able to do product demos and sit down with representatives from the various products and from Microsoft. Additionally, they have people from Office and from the server side, whether that be SQL or SharePoint as well. But again, the focus is more on the business community, the users, business processes, and the products, and what's been going on, not just in the past and currently, but really getting some insight into some upcoming releases. Keynote speakers this year, we were fortunate to have, as always, Kirill, who is the Executive VP of Microsoft Business Solutions, addressing the crowd in terms of the vision and the investments that are going into the products. During his keynote, the 3 products that he really highlighted were Dynamics CRM, GP, and AX. Some of the others were not discussed as much, so those 3 clearly at the forefront of their innovations. And Biz Stone, the co-founder from Twitter, was down there to just give some general insight as to how he was able to found that organization and some of his insights on what makes a successful business. And Ariana Huffington from the Huffington Post also was there, similar to Biz Stone, giving some of her background stories. Networking, again, based on a customer organization-focused event, there's a lot of different opportunities to do networking, whether that be with those independent software vendors, partners like ourselves who are down there, or just trying to find others in the industry, or even other just users of Great Plains, regardless of industry, trying to find out some best practices on closing, for example, or in CRM, what are some of the best practices for sales processes. A lot of roundtable discussions around the same, and more focused event-based discussions where you get experts, whether they be from organizations like yourself, which is also something to consider. You can always throw your name in the ring to present and host a session on maybe an area or a module that you feel very comfortable in and that your organization may be a leader in the product. So that's another area where you can really get a deeper discussion. And then user groups. Every product, for those that haven't looked into it in the past, and we always highly recommend it, there's user groups throughout the U.S., and Chicago has local chapters. You'll hear, for example, CRM UG, there's user groups in Chicago on there. Well, they're also down at Convergence, similarly GPAX, and you can meet up with some of those user groups as well. Number 4, it is fun. It's nice, particularly this year, although I can't say it was overwhelmingly warm in Atlanta. It was 40s and got a little bit over 50s, so for a lot of us who are based in the upper Midwest, it was nice to get away from the winter. And then they do have evening social events, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, one night while you get to explore the ISVs, and then there's usually a top 40 type band and other socializing events, so you are able to get together and do some networking during that. And then innovation. So really from a business perspective, past the fun now, number 5, and I kind of want to hop to another slide, and hopefully this one's visible. It's a little blurry. This comes from a photograph of an overhead during one of the keynote speeches. And kind of the key takeaway here, without going through every block on the roadmap, is they've really started to up the innovation roadmaps for all their products. You used to think that we had GP 2010, then they might do a mid-major release before GP 2013 came out, so maybe one every 2 years you get this big release, and then you get your service packs in between that just more or less help with break fix. CRM has been on the same life cycle. You had 2011, 2013 came out. Now you've got another release coming out this spring, and those would be your major releases. But what they've really chosen to focus on, not just with the on-premise, but really as this really starts to transition more into the cloud world, is to really keep that release cadence moving at a quicker pace so that you're able to keep up with some of the other cloud-based technologies. So what they're doing in the CRM space is they're increasing the release cadence. For example, there's going to be 8 releases for CRM between beginning of this year and November of 2014. GP, they're looking now every quarter to put out releases. And again, even though they're, for example, GP 2013, they're not major releases, they're still going to have more of a major release feel, feature functionality versus the break fix. So from there, I'm going to move into providing some of the highlights on Dynamics CRM that were relayed at the conference. After that, then I'll hand it over to Lance, who will focus on some of the Dynamics GP highlights. And as I mentioned, we will spend a little bit less time on Dynamics CRM because of the audience today. So certainly if there's items not covered here or deeper questions, please reach out. I'd be happy to have a separate one-on-one. So from a state of business, from a CRM perspective, what Microsoft has really been doing is been picking up the growth from a series of acquisitions and functionality that they've been adding into the CRM product. It largely came out initially as a sales-focused product, and over the course of the last year specifically, with the 2013 release and some of their acquisitions, they've really started to get a good, I like to say, stranglehold on the market in both marketing and service. They're really starting to grab that, and you can see by the little box here on the right here that they've now been recognized as the leader in the Magic Quadrant of the Gartner forecast. So in the past, that's something they had not been able to achieve. So now they're in that upper right, meaning that they've really become a leader and a visionary by a lot of the acquisitions and the functionality that they've been able to add. Another key point here from a CRM perspective is the fast release adoption. So what that means for those doing CRM online, that when they release, say, one of these 8 releases through the course of the year, users are adopting those and reporting back success in those adoptions at a clip of 93%. And that, again, is a change in the Dynamics CRM world, where previously they may put those releases out, but they were more disruptive, and customers didn't adapt to them as quickly. It was impacting the way they were doing things. The UI would be changing. There'd be too much of a large leap in functionality. Well, they really started to stabilize those releases, thereby increasing that release adoption. From a roadmap perspective, and this is what we'll touch on specific to a CRM perspective, I mentioned acquisitions, so they've done a handful of acquisitions in the past year, Parature being one that opens up some online portal and customer care capabilities. They've done one with marketing last year, an organization called Marketing Pilot, which helped to really automate and provide much more top enterprise functionality in their marketing module. Social listening, they had acquired an organization called NetBreeze, which really meant that they were able to start to peek into social platforms such as Facebook and Twitter and find out what people might be saying about your company or your products and have that feed in so that you're then able to react and take some action upon that, whether it be reaching out to your customers, doing marketing campaigns, or perhaps proactively resolving issues that perhaps people are tweeting about bugs in, say, software or flaws in some type of hard good. And the Dynamics CRM Spring Wave, which is really one of the key things they talked about throughout the sessions. It's a release coming out in the next 2 to 3 months. It encapsulates the 3 different constellations here between Leo, Subra, and Mira, and they're starting to expand their capabilities in some of these social, CRM, and marketing areas. And then here are some of those other releases, as I mentioned, that are all coming out before end of the year. So Parature was one that if I were to, and I didn't and probably should have, but if I were to take a count of all the different sessions that they had available over the course of the conference, they focused an awful lot on this acquisition. And it's always at the forefront of their presentations, and therefore it is today as well. So this graphic here starts to illustrate what this Parature acquisition would mean. And it really brings to bear 70 million users that have been using Parature out there and merging that software into Dynamics CRM. And really what Parature is, it's something that allows you, if you think Facebook and perhaps Microsoft's the customer, you're the consumer, and you have some of their operating systems, and you're on their Facebook page, it allows you to put in, say, a self-service or a web service portal on a platform such as Facebook, where people are constantly today going out there, leaving little notes, right now having issues with Windows 8 or what have you. So it starts to integrate the information that's being captured and put out on Facebook, as an example. So that's something that can then integrate back into the CRM, where people then in the service center, those agents are able to have visibility into some of these communications that perhaps respond back. It also allows some knowledge authoring and knowledge-based access from some of these social medias as well. What it's also allowing them to do, and you'll hear a lot about this if you read or perhaps view some of the sessions that were presented down at Convergence, they call it omni-channel. So what it's basically saying is you no longer have customer service just in one direct channel to an organization. You don't have it just through these standard call centers and just to the organization itself. So it's allowing you to open it up to these social medias that everyone's engaging with nowadays. So, and those are just some examples. It's really a platform, so regardless of how somebody would want to contact your organization, you're able to pull that information and have that stream of data coming in. So that's the Parature story. Now over on the Microsoft side, they've been increasing their service offering to what they're now calling the Unified Service Desk. So they found a real big niche in the market right now where a lot of other standalone service software vendors have been a player for a long time, but maybe haven't had the full customer-centric software solutions such as CRM, where they're looking to bring the service side along with the marketing as well as that sales and initial prospecting, so that 360-degree view of a customer. This Unified Service Desk is now allowing a service rep to be in there in a one-stop shop user interface, be able to have visibility into knowledge articles, perhaps marketing campaigns that have gone on with the particular customer, look at any support cases that have been going on. There's a little timer that goes on in the bottom left, for example, when they're doing a support case, so that they can really track the performance and the effectiveness of a service agent. So when a call comes in or an online request comes in, how quickly were they able to navigate through the various aspects of the CRM solution to come up with the information and then get that response back to the customer. So they've done some studies, and previously there's a lot of different standalone applications, or even in CRM you're having to do too many clicks and go all over the place to get that information. So they've really brought that into a single user interface so someone can effectively handle that service call. Another piece that they've been really moving forward with in the past few years, and this year is going to see some large strides, will be in mobility. I'm not thinking anyone on this call is too concerned with the Far East mobility, and if I'm wrong, please email me. But what they've now been able to bring to the market will be the Android capabilities from a mobility perspective. And then they're continuing to keep up with the most recent releases from a Windows and an Apple iOS platform perspective. So again, Leo being the big story that went on down there from a spring wave perspective for CRM, and some of the highlights of this release will be the non-disruptive release. So I talked earlier about how in the past it would not be as adopted as quickly. So this one's going to be much more subtle. It's adding some functionality into the product where if you haven't previously used it, it's there. Use it, or you don't have to use it. It's not going to impact what you've been doing today. Talked about what it's expanding within the customer care capabilities and some of the mobility. From an online perspective, for those that have been looking perhaps into some cloud offerings and maybe reconsidering using Microsoft Office and looking at Office 365, well, CRM has an integration with Exchange and with Outlook and email, and they're going to create some more, we'll call it performance improvements on the server side out in the cloud between Exchange and CRM, and also between SharePoint and CRM, so that the products just integrate better out in the cloud. There's going to be some continued social interactions. I talked a bit about some of the acquisitions and more of the Twitters, the Facebooks, the LinkedIns of the world, and all the other interactions that are going on, so that you're able to pull some of that in. For example, if you have a contact, you'll be able to see some of the information of their social profile there within CRM. And one of the next releases later in the year will be this Mira. And this will take the marketing module and start to expand and improve upon that. So this will be something that will allow users to better build out their marketing campaigns and have a little bit more visibility into the effectiveness of those campaigns. So as you build out the campaign, it's going to increase that efficiency. It's going to allow you to do a little bit more monitoring of what's been going on, if people are opening those emails. Are you able to create leads off some of your campaigns and then have visibility into the nurturing and the scoring of those leads? So really having that thread from the inception of the marketing campaign all the way through into your sales cycle, so that you're able to run better analytics and insight to that information to make sure that you are running effective marketing campaigns. And wanted to show this here. This would be one of the new user interfaces that they're going to put out within this Mira release. And if it's visible enough here, you can see these little rectangular blocks that's going to allow you from a drag and drop capability, where you're able to take different activities, drop them into here. So for example, if you want to see when someone's visiting a particular page or customer service, you can then, the line here is hard to see, but you can make then a dependent action. So what's going to happen after they visit that page? And then you can start to build out your process and build almost a hierarchy or a very if-then-else approach as to what needs to happen in your marketing campaign. Last piece I wanted to talk about from one of the upcoming releases is on the social listening side. Talked a little bit about it earlier. It was via an acquisition of an organization called NetBreeze, and what it's going to allow you to do is to set up some better search criteria across social sites, so you can look for your products, your brand names being mentioned, and have those feeds come into CRM. It's going to be optimized where you're able to do that on your handheld devices, your tablets as well, so that someone doesn't have to be always back office. And that's actually something I forgot to mention on the mobile side, that really the mobile experience in the past has been more sales focused. It's now taking that over the next couple of releases and moving it into the marketing and the service perspective as well, so where there are certain use cases you're able to have those mobile devices and perform some of those same service functions that you historically been able to do in the back office when out on the road. From there, I'm going to hand it over to Lance to talk a bit about what's been discussed and some of the highlights on the Dynamics GP side.
Thank you, John. So starting this convergence, it was very good in the fact that this was the first time in several years that I've been going down there where there's been such a big emphasis from Microsoft on GP. The last couple convergence, it seemed like Microsoft had a big focus on AX and growing the AX market. This one, there was a very large number of sessions and mentions in the keynote of the GP product. Starting, I wanted to go through some of the GP roadmap. If you are not on GP 2013, GP 2013 obviously was released a little over a year ago. It does have over 100 new features with the product, so if you are still running an older version, it's something you guys want to start looking to get upgraded. With 2013, I'm not going to go through any of the features that were released with that, but what I do want to do is go through some of the features that were released with some of the service packs and the feature packs with the product. For terminology, one thing I wanted people to start thinking about is the word service pack for Microsoft does not mean just service pack in that it's a break fix. Microsoft is now releasing feature and functionality releases with service packs and feature packs of their products. So with the Microsoft GP roadmap, what's been going on in the past year is that we have been getting, we're on Service Pack 2 for GP 2013. With the releases, what they've been giving a lot of is additional functionality for the web clients. When the web client was released, it came out very simple in that it only really came out with the financials. Over the service packs, they've been adding functionality to it, things such as project accounting and some of the distribution modules that they did not have in it, and also I think payroll has been added. So here's a roadmap going through 2013. Service Pack 1 was more just releasing some very minor releases. Also, Service Pack 2 came out. They did add some functionality in that. They're starting to also add some apps for Office 365. The feature pack coming out, and I'm going to go through these in more detail, is that we are going to be getting into requisitions, workflow, identity management, and some companion apps. The other thing with the GP 2015 is slated to come out mid next year, so keep that on your roadmap. And that will also start the timer. We're trying to get the exact date of when 2010 will no longer be supported, but once 2015 comes out, you will be on the clock to start looking to do an upgrade. So you do have some time and start doing your planning, but just wanted to give everyone kind of a quick running time, and then if it's going to be in your budget that you have to get it budgeted for 2015, keep that in mind also. Okay, Service Pack 1 was a very low feature release. Mostly what they have done is they've added some functionality to the already existing modules in GP. The other thing with Service Pack 1, they also had some payroll tax updates with that, which brings up, if you guys do payroll tax updates, you're also doing a Service Pack update to your product. So keep that in mind. Okay? So I'm going to, in Service Pack 1, I did want to point out too, we keep getting a lot of questions when we're doing the service packs on the GP web client, and should our organization go to the GP web client? There are a couple items I did want to point out with the GP web client, because with the Service Pack 1, it did add several functionality increases for the web client for different modules. But I did want to point out there's certain things that will never make it into the GP web client. So if your company is using invoicing, This is not sales order processing. Microsoft has two different invoicing modules. This is the basic invoicing. This will never be put into the web client. The other big thing is Integration Manager. If you are using Integration Manager, you might have to have a mixed environment where you might have to have some web clients and some clients on the individual machine. From a technology standpoint, Integration Manager is a macro-based product, and they are not slated to release Integration Manager to work with the web client. Now, that can change. So Microsoft does have a website. If you want to say, I really want to go to the web client, but we must have Integration Manager, if enough people put their suggestions in, then I'm sure they will get to it. It's just not slated for release right now. And you can kind of see the other modules that will not be slated as of today for the web client. Okay, Service Pack 2, which has been released. I'm just going to talk through a couple of these. One is the Document Attached 2.0. So if with GP 2013, Microsoft has added Document Attached to some of the windows. It is not on all of the windows. So it is their goal to keep adding Document Attached to many of the windows. Today it's just in the distribution module, but they will be adding it to other modules in the future. Now, don't get confused. You still have the ability to attach documents via OLay, but this is a paperclip on top of a window that it does allow you to attach documents to it. The other thing is Customer and Vendor Combiner. Microsoft has something which I'll talk about in a few minutes, is their Service Tool Library. And they have, I think, over 50 or 60 tools that are available to all customers. What they're trying to do now is to take the tools which are used most out of the tools library and put it right into the product. So with GP 2013 Service Pack 2, the Customer Combiner, the Customer Modifier, which allows you to modify customer numbers. Same thing, Vendor Combiner, if you set up two vendors and you need to merge them together, the combiner will allow you to do that. And Vendor Modifier, if for some reason you have to change the vendor ID, it will allow you to change the vendor ID. Those are in Service Pack 2, which has already been released. Okay, starting with R2, this is due out shortly. One of the big challenges they got feedback from with using the web client is what they called identity management. If you're logged on to the website, you continually had to log into the module. And people said that's cumbersome having to log in 3 different times. So what Microsoft is going to be doing is something called identity management to simplify web logins, where you can log in once, and this will allow you to log in straight into GP and not have to put in your user ID and password. Now, if I'm sure the question is going to come up, does that exist for the GP workstation client? And yes, it does exist. There is a third-party product out there which does allow single sign-on. When you click the GP icon, it will automatically log into GP and not have to put in your credentials. So it does exist on the web, on the desktop client as a third party, but they are putting it into the web client as part of the product. Okay. Something I mentioned before, and I'm going to talk about again, is workflow. Microsoft currently does have workflow embedded in the product. What they are doing is they're going to be taking out all of the features in the business portal, and they're going to be putting them within the product. So the workflow will look a little bit like the Microsoft CRM workflow. So it will be replacing all the workflow from the portal. It's going to be dexterity-based. Dexterity is what GP is written in. So you will be able just to go into GP and build your workflow. With R2, which will be out in a couple months, we're going to start with 5 basic workflows. And I'm going to confirm that, which those are, but it's going to be on the requisitioning and the general ledger approval for the first release. Also email approvals. So if you want to do an approval of a workflow, you do not have to have the GP client. You can do the approval straight from an email and then click approve, and it will go into GP and approve a document. Okay, Business Analyzer is coming out with R2. So if your organization is not using Business Analyzer, what this is a pre-built KPIs and reports within an application. It installs out of the box, and I forgot the number. It's over 50 or 60 pre-built KPIs and reports that Microsoft gives you. In addition to that, Microsoft allows you to change the KPIs and reports to your organization. So not too many companies that we've worked with have put in Business Analyzer due to the original release had some limitations on the functionality. But with the newer release, it is very full functional, easy out of the box use, and it allows you to get data to all the end users with a application. Anybody on GP 2010 or 2013 owns Business Analyzer. There's not an additional licensing fee for the product. Okay? So some of the other features that are coming out in GP R2. One nice thing in the first box is the reprinting of transactions for the bank reconciliation. This was kind of a big gap in that what this is let's say it was year end. You went to do your bank reconciliation. When you do your bank reconciliation in GP, it prints 4 reports. If for some reason the printer jammed or you forgot to print those reports, there was really no way to get those reports to reprint within the system. And sometimes what we were having to do is to kind of piecemeal it together to get your auditors what they needed. So with GP R2 or 2013 R2, you will have the ability to reprint all of those. The other thing I'm going to talk about is the last box in green. This is a very big thing that they are adding to Microsoft, is GL year-end undo. What this will allow you to do currently in GP today is that you can close a year. You can go back 1 year and do journal entries into that particular year. So if I'm working in 2014 and I've already closed 2013, I can still do journal entries into 2013 and 2014. The system is sophisticated enough to know if I do a journal entry into 2013, I update retained earnings, I bring my balances brought forward. What the system will automatically do, though, is it will close 2012 permanently. The GL year undo allows you to go back into historical years, open the year, allow you to do a journal entry into that year, and then the system will roll forward multiple years. So that will be released with the R2 feature. Okay. So a few other things. One in the distribution that they're doing is they're adding some improvements to the suggest an item enhancement. So today, if you pick up an item in GP 2013, you can get some windows for some other suggested items. They've added in some enhancements to that. Also, PO prepayment enhancement with 2013. If somebody had a prepayment on a purchase order, you could put that in. They've added some functionality around that. Finally, the SSRS encumbrance summary and detail reports. Those were somewhat minimal in GP 2013, but they have added functionality to that. Okay, GP 2015 that I mentioned. Some of the things that you're going to see on this list will be put into GP 2013 R2. What they are doing is just taking all the functionality that they want to release, and they put it all in 2015 with the idea, as much as we can pull that out, we're going to get that into the releases. So here's just kind of a list of everything they said will be done by GP 2015. Yep. Okay, there was a big news release. Any of our customers that are using the business portal, when GP 2015 is released, the business portal is no longer going to be serviced. So Microsoft is retiring GP 2015 with the business portal. What they've done, as I've mentioned before, is they're taking some of the functionality from the portal and they're putting it right into the application. So from the web client perspective, they're putting the employee self-service, project time, project expense, that's also known as PDK, is now going to be within a web client, no longer in the business portal. Also, things like the requisitioning that I've mentioned is getting pulled out of the portal. Excuse me. The other thing with the Business Analyzer, the increases in enhancement to that is also to get rid of the portal side. So with GP 2015, keep that in mind. Business portal will no longer be supported. So if your organization is using it, we need to kind of go through what the future of that product is going to be for you guys. Okay, as I mentioned, with GP 2015, employee self-service. So with the web client, employees will have the ability to go do self-service for entering your time and expenses, and also approval workflow. So this used to be in the business portal, being taken out of the portal, and being put right into a web client. The next one is project self-service. This used to be referred to as PDK. This will also be removed from the business portal, and then employees can enter their time and expenses straight from the web client, and they will also have pre-built workflow, similar to the workflow that Microsoft GP is employing. Okay, one thing I did want to mention, and it's a question in a conversation we have with a lot of our customers, is I did not know I owned this. So one thing that most customers that we've talked to do not know they own, and they're adding things to this all the time, even with the feature packs that are coming up, is something called Professional Tools Library. So today there's 41 tools exist. Everyone who owns Microsoft GP owns these tools. So a lot of the things you've ever wanted to do in GP and didn't think GP could do, a lot of times there's a professional tool out there that can handle it. Things such as that customer combiner and vendor combiner. So the ones of these tools that are being used the most, Microsoft's taking out of the Professional Tools Library and embedding it straight into the product. So, thank you, John. So keep in mind, this tool library does exist. These are the tools. If you need a list, please email me, and I'd be happy to go through what some of the tools do for you. But, I mean, we had a meeting last week with a customer who had no idea that these things existed, and there was 3 tools that they used almost immediately. All right, I think that's it. All right, well, thank you guys for your time. And Erica, you good?
Sure. So if anybody has any questions for Lance or John, as I said earlier, please just type them into the question box, and we'll go ahead and answer your questions. Okay, it looks like we had a question come through, guys. As an organization using GP, we are interested in starting or trying CRM, but what is your recommendation to get started?
I guess I can take that one. This is John. Well, one thing that I know a lot of GP organizations don't realize that they do have with their licensing, most of the licensing, one server installation of CRM comes with that. So obviously going through a demo and talking to us is one way to get started and look through things. But another that some of our clients have chosen to do is, well, hey, what does it take to get that server license installed, and can we then play around with it? Because some organizations would like to maybe evaluate it over time. So certainly a couple different avenues. By all means, reach out to us, and we can certainly take you through some of that and assess your needs, and whether that be your standard sales processes, or is it something more in a customer service or marketing sense, that you're not so much concerned on the sales front, but you heard about some of the things today on what is coming down the pipeline from marketing or service, and feel that maybe those modules would be a niche. So just like a GP, for example, you don't need to bite off and do every module, so perhaps it's one of the 3. Kind of another piece added to that server piece for those that want to kind of take home and have the trial side, so to speak, for a little bit, is you do get also free with your GP licenses a connector between CRM and GP. So this would probably be a little bit more advanced, but it's possible to put that server in and put the connector in and actually see some of the data streams from a customer and perhaps an order perspective if you really have items, whether those items in an inventory perspective represent service or hard goods. So that would be a bit more of an advanced and certainly some more time to make that happen. But again, things that are out there that you own that are available, and be happy to talk that through with you guys.
And as Gary just mentioned to me, that there is also CRM Online for a 30-day free trial if you want to get up to start and try, see how it looks.
So yes, a couple different avenues. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. A couple other questions have come through. How much third-party support is there for the web client?
Third-party support? Well, right now, from the so what I'm assuming the question is are the ISVs and third parties available on it? It's a mixed basket out there. The ISVs that have large install bases like Mira from Akorma, there's some binary products, some of them from Professional Tools, do have their third parties available in the web client. What Microsoft did is when they built it, they made it very easy for companies or the ISVs to get their product into it. So it is a mixed bag. Email me and I can find out which product you're using. But if it is Mira or some of the well-received ones out there, then we already know those exist. Smaller ones that might be unique to a very small base might not. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can have a mixed environment. So if the ISV does not need to be on all the machines, you could have 1 or 2 machines with the ISV using it and the rest of the organization using the web client. And we have companies that are using Terminal for some of the third parties and then using the web client for everybody else.
Okay, great, thanks. Will things like Print Boss and Paper Save work with the web client?
Good question. Print Boss already sits kind of on its own separately, so that one I would think would be yes. I need to confirm that. Paper Save, I had talked to them about that. From the last time I was talked to them, which was the release of the web client, they did not have a product for the web client. But it is a question, whoever sent that, I will follow up with you because Emtec is employing the web client and Paper Save for our own organization, so I'll let you know within a day.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lance. Let's see here. Will workflow build in Portal be moved to GP 2013 R2?
No. So if you have built anything in GP Business Portal via workflow, you will have to go back into GP and set that workflow up again. They're using kind of different parts of the Windows workflow engine, so there is not a migration path of anything you've done in Business Portal to the new workflow within GP. That's as it exists today. If enough people complain, will Microsoft see if they can do some? Maybe, but assume as of today there is no transition from Portal to GP workflow.
Okay, great. Is there a cost for the service packs?
No. If you are current with your Microsoft GP enhancements, all of your service packs and feature packs are included. The only thing is there will be the time from our organization, if you wanted us to do your service packs, to put them in. So the service packs today, what you would have to do is to touch every one of your clients and then run the service pack on each of them, or we can push the service packs out to all the machines if necessary, and if you have that set up in your servers. But there is not an additional fee as long as you're current with Microsoft.
Great, thank you, Lance. Does anybody else have any additional questions? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, we appreciate everyone taking the time to join us this morning. As I said before, we'll be making both the presentation and the recording available. They'll be posted on our website by the end of today. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks again. Bye-bye.